The movie begins in Australia, where a professor is invited to the stage to deliver a speech. He opens with a lighthearted joke, but quickly shifts to an offensive remark that stuns the audience. When a committee member attempts to intervene, the professor shockingly cuts off one of her fingers. Chaos ensues as people flee in terror, while the professor calmly picks up the severed finger using a napkin. The police soon arrive, and when the professor refuses to surrender, he is fatally shot. With his final breath, he reaches for his ringing phone but is unable to answer it. Meanwhile, in Louisiana, Elliot bids farewell to his pregnant fiancée Shelby as he prepares to head to work. Their wedding is just days away, but his day takes a devastating turn when he is fired for being too lenient with clients. This news hits hard, not just because of the wedding and impending baby, but also because Elliot relies on his job's insurance to support his mentally disabled brother, Michael. Concerned about his brother's future, Elliot visits Michael, who is terrified by the prospect of losing his outpatient care. Without insurance, Michael faces the grim reality of returning to a mental institution, a place he fears due to past mistreatment. Desperate for help, Elliot seeks out his estranged father, Samson, only to discover that Samson has lost his retirement savings and now plans to move in with Elliot. That evening, Michael asks Elliot for a ride to pick up his medication. During the drive, Michael recalls how their father's behavior turned abusive after mysteriously acquiring wealth. After dropping Michael off, Elliot stops at a red light and becomes annoyed by a fly buzzing around his face. The light remains stubbornly red when Elliot's phone suddenly rings, displaying an unfamiliar number and a ringtone he didn't select. A mysterious voice on the line addresses Elliot by his full name, announcing that he's been chosen for a unique game show with the potential to earn a fortune. When Elliot hesitates, the voice reveals intimate details about his life, including his late mother's car accident, his financial struggles, and even the fly in his car. The voice then offers him $1,000 to kill a fly. Frustrated, Elliot swats the insect, and moments later he receives a notification confirming the money has been deposited into his account. Suspicious, Elliot exits his car to check for any observers but finds no one. The voice calls back, challenging him to eat the fly for $3,622, the exact amount Shelby owes on her credit card. After the call ends, the traffic light finally turns green. Back at home, Elliot confirms the deposit in his bank account before reluctantly swallowing the fly. Instantly, another payment appears. The voice contacts Elliot again, revealing that he must complete 11 more increasingly difficult tasks over the next 36 hours to earn up to $6 million. However, failure at any point will result in losing all the money. The voice sets strict rules. Elliot must not tell anyone about the game, attempt to contact the organizers, or interfere with the tasks. Agreeing to the terms, Elliot completes his registration by singing an odd phrase and waits for the next challenge. The following day, while at the park with Shelby and her family, Elliot receives his next task: make a child cry within 5 minutes for $5,000. Spotting a young girl, he blocks her path and cruelly convinces her that her parents are planning to abandon her. The girl eventually bursts into tears, and Elliot receives confirmation of his reward. He quickly rejoins his group, but not before the girl's parents retaliate by throwing a trash can at his car. Later, Elliot accompanies Shelby to pick up his father, Samson, from church. While Shelby struggles with Samson's rude comments about her pregnancy and their marriage, Elliot sneaks away to take another call. His next challenge: burn a nativity scene crafted by blind children. As Shelby helps Samson in the restroom, enduring his offensive and demanding behavior, Elliot prepares for the morally fraught task ahead. As chaos unfolds, Elliot uses the distraction to swipe the nativity scene and sneaks into the backyard, where he sets it ablaze. The prize money is instantly credited to his account, but the fire quickly spreads, engulfing the church. Panicked, Elliot grabs a fire extinguisher but fails to control the flames. Desperate, he pulls the fire alarm before rushing to find Shelby and Samson so they can flee the scene. Once outside, Elliot receives another call. This time, the voice instructs him to follow a homeless man across the street whenever he feels ready. Without explanation, Elliot ditches Shelby and his father, ignoring Shelby's growing frustration with his strange behavior. Meanwhile, at the police station, the little girl's parents file a report about Elliot, as does the homeless man, who recounts a bizarre story of being offered $1,000 and an ostrich in exchange for his clothes and shopping cart. He claims the man took off with the cart and his belongings. Detective Chilcote takes note of the matching descriptions from both reports and becomes intrigued, especially when another call comes in reporting a fire at the church. Chilcote personally takes charge of the investigation, just as an officer arrives with the infamous ostrich. Elsewhere, Elliot, now dressed in the homeless man's clothing, begins his sixth challenge. He arrives in an old apartment building where he must take a resident from Unit 6B out for coffee before 4:00 p.m. to earn $50,000. Assuming it will be easy, Elliot is horrified to discover the man dead in the bathtub. The voice explains that the resident took his own life, but insists this doesn't disqualify the challenge. Determined, Elliot uses air freshener to mask the smell, props the body into a lifelike position, and transports it to a nearby diner in the shopping cart. At the diner, Elliot conceals the body's face with a hat and grows increasingly anxious as a waitress takes too long to bring coffee. With just a minute left, a group of police officers enters and sits nearby, heightening his nerves. Left with no choice, Elliot steals a cup of coffee from their table just in time to complete the challenge, securing the reward. When the officers confront him, Elliot drops a wad of cash on their table and accuses them of spiking their coffee with alcohol, prompting them to back off. He escapes as the voice calls again, impressed by his quick thinking and counting it as the 7th challenge. The voice, however, warns Elliot that his brother Michael's insurance file is under review, with coverage likely being revoked. Meanwhile, Michael, wandering alone, stumbles across a bus driven by a masked figure and boards it without hesitation. Back at the diner, police recover the body from the cart. Detective Chilcote finds a card dropped by Elliot during the scuffle and notices a suspicious man named Vogler speaking to the waitress. Before Chilcote can question him, Vogler vanishes, leaving behind a note with contact details. When Chilcote visits Vogler at his trailer, Vogler accuses the detective of being complicit with the game's organizers and urges him to kill Elliot. Vogler flees, locking himself behind a gate, leaving Chilcote to search the trailer. Inside, Chilcote discovers extensive information about similar games occurring nationwide and a mysterious logo tied to the organization. Elliot, still on the bus, receives another call instructing him to retrieve his library card. Unable to find it, he realizes the police likely know his identity, and he faces potential prison time. The voice assures him that completing the game will erase all charges. Late at night, the bus drops Elliot at a motel. In room 8, he finds a nurse and a man named John, a former school bully who tormented Elliot and his brother Michael. The voice tasks Elliot with cutting off John's arm. Although horrified, Elliot is surprised when John willingly agrees, knowing he'll be paid. Despite a local anesthetic, John remains awake, taunting Elliot by recalling his cruel treatment of both Elliot and Michael. Pushed to the edge, Elliot snaps and severs John's arm in one swift motion, leaving the room splattered in blood. He drives John to the hospital, handing the severed arm to a nurse before departing. On his way out, Elliot encounters John's brother, another bully from his past, and strikes him twice with a chair, breaking it in the process. A message confirms this as the 9th challenge. Meanwhile, police raid Elliot's home, searching for clues to his next location. Hours later, Elliot attends his wedding rehearsal dinner, greeting guests before retreating to a corner, anxiously awaiting the next call. The voice finally delivers the 10th challenge. For $500,000, Elliot must destroy the room while singing a communist anthem. Every breakable item must be smashed and flowers must be urinated on. Anthem's lyrics are tucked in Elliot's jacket pocket. Just as Elliot prepares for his chaotic toast, police arrive, accusing Michael of public nudity, throwing the evening further into disarray. Shelby's mother quickly ushers the guests into another room while Elliot, consumed with worry, frets over his brother, knowing this incident could land him in a terrible institution. In a bid to distract the police, Elliot decides to dive headfirst into the challenge. He starts smashing glasses while singing loudly, creating chaos. Seizing the distraction, Michael takes the chance to escape. Meanwhile, Elliot grabs a microphone stand and begins wrecking everything in the room, even hurling cupcakes at the officers. When the police try to restrain him, Elliot threatens to harm himself, forcing them to back off. Adding to the mayhem, he urinates on a bouquet of flowers before bolting out of the building, jamming a chair against the door to slow pursuit. Just as he thinks he's safe, the next challenge comes in. He must get arrested. Left with no choice, Elliot removes the barricade and allows the officers to tackle him. At the station, he endures hours of intense questioning. A cop compiles a list of his alleged crimes, but Elliot notices discrepancies. Some actions aren't his, leading him to the chilling realization that another person is playing the same twisted game. Elsewhere, Chilcote, an investigator, learns through the news that Vogler's RV has been burned. Chilcote wants a private moment with Elliot, but his superior denies the request. Once alone, Elliot breaks off a piece of the chair in his cell and uses it to threaten an officer into handing over a gun. Taking the cop hostage, he demands his phone back. But as the officers strategize outside, Elliot locks himself in another room to take his next call. The mysterious voice confirms that a second player is also competing, and if they complete all 13 challenges first, they win the prize while Elliot faces imprisonment. Amid the tension, a cop attempts to disarm him, but Elliot accidentally fires the gun, injuring the officer's foot. With the other officers preparing to storm in, Elliot smashes a window with a chair and jumps, landing in a dumpster. He briefly considers retrieving his phone but sees Chilcote aiming a gun at him from above, along with more officers closing in. Elliot flees, stealing a random man's phone on the street and yelling that he knows he's being monitored, urging the game organizers to call him on the new device. No call comes. In his paranoia, Elliot accuses a passing woman of being part of the game and follows her home, harassing her. Hours later, he realizes she's just an innocent bystander and apologizes. The woman's demeanor shifts suddenly. She asks Elliot to fix a clothesline for her. As he completes the task, he gets a text confirming he's finished Challenge 12 and has earned $1 million. Just then, a group of bikers approaches and Elliot notices the clothesline stretches across the street, creating a deadly trap. He quickly lowers it, allowing the bikers to pass unharmed. However, the second player appears, stringing up another wire. Elliot tries to warn the bikers, but they don't listen. As they loop back, they hit the trap and are killed. Elliot, horrified by the carnage, collapses in tears. He retrieves a ringing phone from one of the victim's belongings. The voice congratulates him on completing another challenge and begins reading comments from the audience. Overwhelmed, Elliot smashes the phone and declares he's done with the game. Meanwhile, Chilcote tracks Vodler down in a bar and corners him with a threat of arrest unless he spills what he knows. Vodler, resigned, unveils the extensive research he's compiled, detailing the sinister game's rules. He reveals a deeply personal tragedy. His wife participated in the game years ago, but died after being forced to eat their dog. Ever since, Vodler has been obsessively searching for the game's elusive organizers, though his efforts have been fruitless. According to Vodler, this twisted game has been responsible for infamous events throughout history, including JFK's assassination. He chillingly notes that the 13th and final challenge is always the same. The player must kill a family member. As this revelation unfolds, Elliot is wandering down the street when he hears a familiar ringtone, the distinct sound of a game phone. He scans the crowd and spots someone running away, prompting him to chase them into an amusement park. The other player suddenly starts up an ice cream truck and tries to run him down. Elliot narrowly dodges and watches the truck speed off. Determined, he commandeers a random car, finding another phone waiting in the glove compartment. The voice reminds Elliot that interfering with another player's progress is strictly against the rules and begins to explain the final challenge. Frustrated, Elliot tosses the phone out the window. The pursuit ends at Elliot's childhood home, where the truck finally stops. Inside, he finds Samson, his father, calmly eating dinner. From the bathroom, Elliot hears movement and is horrified to discover Michael, his brother, emerging. Elliot's world shatters as he realizes Michael is the other player. Michael, carrying a weapon, reveals he's prepared to kill their father, Samson, as revenge for the abuse they suffered as children. Elliot tries to de-escalate the situation, but Samson interrupts with a shocking confession. He played the game in his youth and killed their mother to win. The weight of that decision has haunted him ever since, turning him into the bitter, broken man they know. Fueled by anger and disgust, Elliot pulls out the gun he took from the cop and tells Michael to wait in another room. As Samson, refusing to let his son fall victim to the same cycle, grabs a knife and ends his own life before Elliot can act. Michael, now panicked, believes Elliot might turn on him. He reaches into his bag, claiming he needs his medicine, but Elliot, fearing the worst, shoots him. Realizing his mistake too late, Elliot rushes to Michael's side. Michael, in his dying breaths, admits he only wanted to win at something for once in his life. As his wound bleeds out, Michael stabs Elliot, who stumbles back. Michael collapses, dying as his phone plays a taunting jingle, declaring him the loser and Elliot the winner. Elsewhere, Chilcote is revealed to be working for the game. He kills Vodler, burning all of his research to erase the trail, and heads to Samson's home to destroy the evidence there. But Elliot intercepts him. Chilcote assures Elliot that he's merely there to clean up, insisting Elliot has nothing to fear. Blinded by rage and grief, Elliot shoots Chilcote, a move that immediately disqualifies him and forfeits his $6 million prize. In the aftermath, Elliot calls Shelby to check on her. She mentioned someone asked her to eat a fly, but she refused. Relieved, Elliot sighs, the weight of his ordeal pressing down on him. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to catch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.